And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and this is 10 cards you should be putting in your Commander decks, episode 10. And we are starting out this time with Death Grip. Black enchantment, pay black and a black to counter target green spell. That's right, a repeatable counter spell for just those green spells. If you weren't aware, there are other colors that can counter stuff other than blue. And of course, this is a great way to do it. Only works on green, but green is one of the most popular colors in the format. Again, if you're in the pod situation where all your buddies like to ramp like crazy, this can be obviously very effective. It can also be a little oppressive. Your playgroup might have to start putting Croson Grip back in their decks, of course, because that'll be one of the few things that'll get rid of this. Just giving it a mention if you didn't know it existed. Next up, we got another black enchantment here, Deathmatch. 3 and a black enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, that creature's controller may have target creature of their choice get -3/-3 until end of turn. Wow, what a crazy, chaotic card in a commander game, right? Anytime any creature enters the battlefield, that creature's controller can give something else -3/-3, which likely means it's going to kill it. If you're picking the appropriate target anyway, where exactly does this fit is the difficult one, right? This is obviously a very unique effect, but where are you going to play it? If you just want creatures to be dying all the time, certainly there are decks like that. This is a fantastic fit, right? I mean, if you don't care that your creatures are dying, great. I have a bunch of 1/1 tokens enter the battlefield. All of them are giving -3/-3 to all my other opponent's creatures, killing off a bunch of their creatures. Maybe I get some card draw off of it or some dice triggers off of it. Then my opponents, they're going to show me, so they're going to give my 1/1 tokens -3/-3. Great. I don't care. So if the downside here of losing your creatures isn't that bad, this seems like a pretty good slam dunk in a deck, right? Moving on to Death or Glory. 4 and a white sorcery. Separate all creature cards in your graveyard into 2 piles. Exile the pile of an opponent's choice and return the other to the battlefield. So this is a cycle of cards, and they did this quite a bit back in Invasion. And a lot of those cards are really good, again, especially in the Commander format. The opponent's choice cards can tend to be really good in the Commander format because of the politics situation. But even outside of that, I think this is actually a really good card. You got a bunch of creatures in your graveyard. You separate all of them into 2 piles. You exile the pile of an opponent's choice, and the rest go onto the battlefield. So of course, if there's one creature you really want, you can separate that into 1 pile, right? Just like you would with a Fact or Fiction. Very similar situation, obviously, right? You separate the one you really want, and then you put like 7 creatures in the other pile. Obviously, your opponent is going to have a super tough choice there, and no matter what happens, I think it's a win for you, right? Either I get the creature I'm looking for back into play, maybe it's even your commander, or I get 7 creatures or, whatever else the other pile is into play. It's kind of a win-win situation. Also a fun card in a commander game, I think. And of course, just like the Fact or Fiction situation, you can get the very favorable split if you pick the right opponent. All right, let's talk about Deconstruct coming in at number 4. Hear me out here, okay? 3 and a green sorcery, destroy target artifact, add 3 green. This is a card that I imagine most Commander players have never even seen before, but I actually am going to make a case for why I think it's an easy slot into any deck. And of course, that argument is it's essentially free destroy an artifact, isn't it? I mean, it is. You're going to pay 3 mana, you're going to destroy one of your opponent's artifacts, doesn't really matter what it is, and then you're going to get 3 mana, so this card pays for itself. On its face, this card looks awful. 3 mana destroy an artifact is awful, sorcery speed even worse, but it's essentially free. I think if you put this card in your deck, you would find that in a lot of games, on turn 3, I'm going to pay 3 mana, destroy my opponent's Soul Ring, and then get 3 mana back, which I will then do what I normally would have done on my turn, cast a Cultivate or something like that, right? So it's essentially just free destroy your opponent's Soul Ring or Arcane Signet pretty much every time you play it. I think that's actually not bad. Next up, really funny card, favorite of mine, Debt of Loyalty. 1 white instant, regenerate target creature. You gain control of that creature if it regenerates this way. Yes, that's right. This is a way to gain control of creatures in mono white. There's actually a couple of ways, funny enough, to gain control of creatures in mono white. This is one of those dual purpose cards, which I love these cards in the Commander format, the ones that I can use on my opponents or on myself. Of course, I can just regenerate my commander with this if I want to. Someone cast a board wipe, obviously not a Wrath of God, because that doesn't allow regeneration, but some other destroy all creatures board wipe or blasphemous act or anything like that, I regenerate my commander, and I get to save it. 3 mana save my commander. It's not great, but it definitely works. The really funny way to use this, though, is your opponent's again casting that Blasphemous Act, and you pick whatever the best creature is on the board that your opponents are playing, and you regenerate that creature, and of course, you gain control of it if it regenerated this way. So once it regenerates, it'll come into play under your control. Pretty neat way to steal a creature in mono white, and again, also can be used to save your stuff. Coming in at number 6, Defiler of Souls, 3 black, and a red demon 5/5 with flying. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a monocolored creature. It's a really neat card that I'm surprised doesn't see like really any play at all. Also, the art is fantastic, just my opinion, but I think it looks really friggin' cool. Where exactly are you going to play this? I mean, I think it fits in a lot of themes. It is a demon, let's keep that in mind. And if you're in that demon tribal deck, it's likely your commander. Of course, if you're playing Rakdos colors, it's pretty much a guarantee that your commander is multicolored, so you won't have to sacrifice it, right? You're only forcing sacrifices of monocolored creatures here. Fits pretty good in a sacrifice theme in black and red, obviously, because it's going to force everyone to sacrifice stuff. And you have to sacrifice stuff? Great, no problem. You want to sacrifice stuff because you're in that jury deck or whatever, so it fits there as well. Maybe you are in that multicolored theme. Maybe you actually have a multicolored theme deck in black and red, and this is going to force everyone else to sacrifice creatures and not you because all your creatures are multicolored. It certainly is a possibility. I think it's a neat card and a pretty unique one as well. Coming in at number 7, Deathblade Elite, 1 white mana human soldier, 1/1, and has one of, I think, the best abilities that they've ever come out with in the game of Magic that has never been reprinted. I won't say it's one of the best abilities ever. It is one of my favorite abilities that they have never reprinted. It only appeared in this set and we have not seen it since. I think it's a great ability. Provoke. Whenever this creature attacks, you may have target creature defending player controls untap it and block it if able. That's a great ability, I think, especially in a commander game. And funny enough, this is a card that actually did used to see a decent amount of play back in the day in Commander for a variety of reasons, because it also has 1 and a white prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to and dealt by Deathblade Elite this turn. So this was a pretty easy way, I would say, to take one of your opponent's creatures out of combat. If they had a big scary creature that they could block with, you want to get in for damage, you attack with your Deathblade Elite. Of course, you get the provoke trigger, you force that creature to untap and block it. And then of course, unless it can block multiple creatures, it can't block the creature that you want to be getting for damage. And of course, you pay the 1 and a white and you prevent all the damage to your Deathblade Elite, so it survives to attack another day. Pretty neat interaction there. It works great in that theme. The theme of I want to get in for damage. The theme of I want to force blocks. Obviously, it also works, although not too many decks like that in white. It also works in the theme of humans and soldiers because this is a human and soldier. So that's pretty good too. Just a really great ability that I hope they revisit someday. And this is probably the best creature that has it. Coming in at number 8, Dense Foliage, 2 and a green enchantment. Creatures can't be the target of spells. That's it. Pretty simple. And where exactly do you play this? Well, I guess you play it in a deck where you don't want your creatures to be the target of spells. Of course, this is one of those cards that affects everybody. I love cards like that. It can really throw a wrench into your opponent's plans as well. Obviously, if they're playing a deck where they're casting lots of auras or they just want to be pumping their creatures, this is going to be hindering them greatly because they can't target their own creatures as well. But likely the best way to be using a card like this is you just don't want your stuff targeted, right? Swords and Path and all those super popular removal spells are now going to be useless against your creatures. I mean, they will be useless against other creatures as well. I will point out in a mono green deck, you probably don't have a whole lot of creature removal, obviously. So that's where this might be extra good because again, less of a drawback for you. Certainly is a really powerful effect in the commander game though. Coming in at number 9, Destructive Flow. This is certainly going to be a card that a lot of people aren't going to like because it is very stacksy. Black, red, and a green enchantment at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player sacrifices a non-basic land. So the interesting thing about this card, of course, is it's going after people with non-basic lands, and you're in a 3-color deck. So it's going to be really difficult for you to not be sacrificing lands. Now, I will say, if you're in that Lord Windgrace deck where you're fine with lands going to your graveyard, big upside for you, downside for you, not much, right? Maybe it's even an advantage for you if you want lands to be going to your graveyard, right? I'm specifically giving this card a mention because there is so much basic land hate in the format now. And I don't mean stuff that goes after basic lands. I mean people just hating on basic lands and talking about how, you don't need any basic lands in your deck anymore. far have 0 basic lands. Let's play more cards like this, guys, and punish those people for not playing basic lands. I'm all for it. And coming in at number 10 this time, Devouring Straus is 5 black, Phyrexian Horror, 9/9 flying trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. And you can also sacrifice a creature to regenerate Devouring Strauses. This is one of my favorite creatures of all time as far as just a big beater for smashing your opponent's 9/9 flying trample, even in the commander format, is a very scary creature. And again, back in the day, they used to actually put downsides on creatures, especially when they were this big and scary. 9/9 flying trample for 8 mana is a pretty good rate even by today's standards. But of course, you gotta sacrifice a creature on your upkeep. That's okay. You're obviously in a theme where you want to be doing that. Lots of themes, obviously all the aristocrats ones, fantastic fit because you're totally okay with sacrificing creatures. Maybe you are again in that sacrifice theme in Rakdos, and any of you guys with Rakdos sacrifice decks, you might have gotten a couple great cards out of this video. It's okay if you want to sacrifice something, right? You get that dies trigger or that sacrifice trigger or whatever. And then also sacrifice a creature to regenerate Devouring Strauses, again with that regenerate. Pretty great way to keep your Devouring Strauses around. And I will also point out, this is a free sack outlet, which in a lot of those aristocrats decks, maybe you just want to sacrifice your whole team, right? You got a Blood Artist in play, your buddy's about to cast a farewell. Okay, well, I'll just sacrifice all my creatures to my Devouring Strauses and regenerate it like 30 times to drain all my opponents so that my team doesn't get exiled, right? So that might be something you overlook on this guy, is the fact that he is actually a free sack outlet, which can be important in a lot of decks. All right, that is it. That is all. 10 more cards that I think you guys should give some serious consideration for your commander decks if they at all fit what you're doing. That is it for today, though, and thanks for tuning in.